Welcome back to Everything EOS, the longest running EOS podcast. We are both so excited that you joined us for yet another week of everything happening in the EOS ecosystem. As a quick reminder, please do us a favor, help us out with that algorithm and get more people to learn and understand what EOS is by smashing that like button, give us a subscribe, and maybe even leave a comment on this video to tell the algorithm we're doing the right thing. And as a reminder, if you want to support the show beyond giving a like or beyond subscribing and leaving a comment, you can head on over to everythingeos.io, check out our very cool EOS merch, which is in the wash because I wear it so frequently and don't want to wear the same shirt every episode. But it's great merch. It really does support the show, and you can check that out on our website, everythingeos.io. Zach, what do we have this week?
Well, we're not done talking about ourselves yet, Rob. We'd be doing ourselves a disservice if we didn't mention the launch last week of the Everything EOS, EOSIO developer courses.
Hey!
So we tried getting them out by the end of April. We got them out, I think, May 1st or May 2nd, but we got it out before the episode aired that we said it was going to be live, and it was live. Yep. And we've had incredible feedback so far. We are up to 251 students signed up learning about EOSIO. And a lot of them are already chugging away through. A lot of people 30 to 50% through the course. That's really cool. We're doing exactly what needs to be done with EOS. We are onboarding new developers, people who are on the fence about learning EOSIO. Now you have a link that you can send them and say, here, go here, and I don't know how many hours it's going to take. It's 8 hours of content, so it might take them a lot longer. But this is where you go if you want to get started on EOSIO, especially if you have some minimal developer experience. You should have no problem. The reviews have been fantastic. We have 30. We have 30 reviews so far, a 4.58 star average. We also have students from 53 different countries. So this is global. Wow. Our audience here at Everything EOS is global with the podcast, and so is our courses. Just want to read. I got a bunch of good reviews in front of me. I'm only going to read one. We're not talking about this the whole time, but he says, the amount of value presented in this course is downright unmeasurable. This has changed my life for the better. As an experienced programmer C++ that lacked the tools to tackle EOS swiftly, this course probably saved me another 3 months of running around in circles. This is a must, in all caps, for anyone looking to finally dive into EOS development. That's a big stamp of approval right there, baby.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kirk, for that review. That is awesome. And there, like Zack said, over on Udemy, so many good reviews about this course. So if you're a developer, maybe you've programmed in C++ before, maybe you haven't, head on over everythingeos.io/dev and take a look at what we have. It's pretty cool. And to think that there are 251, I guess, people that before this weren't necessarily building on EOS, and now, thanks to the Everything EOS developer course, are out there, they're learning, and may someday actually build a dapp for the EOS mainnet. So just thinking about that, these 250 people out there building because of this course is just such a cool thought, and I'm so glad that we were able to contribute this to the community.
And just one last thing, the course is absolutely free. We need to clarify that whenever you go to a landing page, it's everythingeos.io/dev. It says it's free if you vote for Cypherglass. That's true. You connect your scatter. If you're voting for Cypherglass, you can get your coupon instantly. But we still give the coupon away for free for anyone who doesn't want to vote or doesn't want to vote for Cypherglass. The only difference is on the web form, there's an extra field that says feedback. And the only way we give the coupon code to these users are if they provide us feedback as to why they don't want to vote or why they don't want to vote for Cypherglass. And I'm personally manually checking all of these responses. We have not had a single one that had a valid reason. It was all just technical things where they couldn't figure it out. So we sent them the promo code, and now they're on their way developing on EOSIO.
Yeah, super exciting. And speaking of EOSIO updates, B1 June is now just a couple weeks away, and we have that pre-B1 June mixer on May 31st in Washington, D.C. Oh, yeah. So if you haven't already, please RSVP at the link. It is on Eventbrite. We'll leave a link in the description. If you're going to be there, we need you to RSVP so that we can have an accurate head count. The venue, I think, Right now, how many do we have RSVP'd, Zach? What's the current number?
All right, so let's just read out the link for the people listening that can't see the screen. It is a Eventbrite link, but we have a forwarding link, everythingeos.io/B1 June. That'll take you to the RSVP page. We are up to 85 RSVPs for our pre-B1 June event, and it starts at 6 p.m. at the Biergarten Haus in Washington, D.C., and we have an end time of 9 p.m., but that doesn't mean everyone's going home at 9 p.m. It just means all of the people organizing the event, if they choose to go somewhere else, they will do that probably at 9 o'clock. Some people will probably stay, but there's a bunch of other cool stuff to do right on this street. It's called like H Street, so that's why there's a 9 p.m. end time, but if you are coming in late and it's after 9 p.m., hop into the Everything EOS Telegram channel. We'll tell you where everyone's at. We'll probably end up just being at the Biergarten Haus, but I'm really looking forward to meeting many members of our community there, from the Block.One community, from the EOS community, all communities, including the Washington, D.C. just general blockchain community. We have 2 different blockchain meetup groups in DC who are helping us out with promoting this. They've put it in their newsletters, and these are not necessarily EOS people, and these are the people we want to come to this event. We want people working for the government coming to this event. We want people who are just mildly interested in EOS, who are maybe into some other platform coming, and just the community is the biggest selling point of EOS and EOSIO. It is the most unbelievable thing. We play a major part in it. I just can't wait to meet everyone yet again.
And speaking of meeting everyone, next week is the official blockchain week in New York City. It's the week that Consensus, which is a huge Ethereum event, happens, along with a lot of other blockchain events. Now, unfortunately, the EOS New York meetup was canceled. Their venue fell through, so that event is not happening as planned this week. But as I understand it, there's another EOS event happening. Is that right, Zach?
So, I like you, I was bummed out that the event we are anticipating with EOS New York, they weren't able to secure a venue, but they will reschedule the event for sometime in June. They wanted to remind me of that. But it just so happens that there is another EOS event happening during Blockchain Week in New York City on Tuesday night, May 14th at the Woolley in the Financial District. Carbon and Acon are both sponsoring an event from 10 p.m. until whenever. And they have open bar, they have a DJ, so it should be a good time. I will be there along with the people I mentioned before that I'll be going with. And I hope to see some of you guys there, and we could all speculate over some B1 June, and hopefully I'll see a lot of you guys in DC also.
Nice. And speaking of next week as well, next Wednesday, which is May 15th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time or 6:30 p.m. Israel time, I'm actually doing sort of a live over Skype or over Zoom, a meetup with the EOS Israel team. So they put on these awesome meetups directly in Tel Aviv. Now, I can't make it all the way over to Tel Aviv for this event, but I will be tuning in digitally. And there should be a recording of that little presentation I'm giving on the last year of EOS. It's really a celebration of almost 1 year of the mainnet, and now crossing that milestone of 1 million EOS accounts on the mainnet as well. So I'll be there talking, hanging out with everybody virtually, so it should be a good time. If you happen to be in Tel Aviv, head on over to the Cypherglass YouTube channel. We just put out a video about it with all the details you need to know to RSVP.
So are you planning to make any announcements during that, or is that just like a year recap? Because I keep hearing rumors from you and Saeed about this ENS, DNS thing you guys have going on. So like in the last couple of days, Saeed Jeffries was in our Telegram channel on the Everything EOS Telegram, and he was giving a lot more information than you've personally given me on this DNS service. Yeah. What are you able to say about it, and do we have a date yet?
So what I can say is that we don't have a specific date, but it is coming this month. So before B1 June happens, EOS DNS will launch, and EOS DNS is ultimately a product from Saeed and the people over at EOS Cafe Block. They really came in, they said, hey, we've been working on this DNS solution for a while. Instead of you guys going out and building your own DNS solution, why don't you use ours? We'll do a deep integration with EOS Name Service, and ultimately we'll be able to release that DNS solution a lot faster. So that is the beauty of this partnership, getting DNS out quicker, turning these EOS account names into decentralized domain names much, much sooner than we would have been able to if we just did it on our own. So a huge shout out to Saeed from EOS Cafe Block. But it is coming this month, like Saeed said, and it will enable any EOS account to be turned into a decentralized domain name. So the way it'll work, you'll download a Chrome extension or something similar, and essentially in your Chrome browser, instead of typing http:// you'll type EOS:// and then your account name. So in my case, eos://rob.vr will take me to whatever website I want if I have a website hosted there or just want to point it as a redirect to an existing website. So we're super excited about it. The beta is launching this month, EOS DNS with EOS name service. So be sure to get your domains, or I guess your account names, which will become domains on eosnameservice.io.
That's so cool. Big public release for the beta. I guess it's the first beta release of dGoods. Is that what you would call this?
Yeah, this is the first dGoods beta release. So the alpha release came out, I think this was only a couple weeks ago, where the internal partners, Cypherglass included, everybody got a look at the code, testing it out, and now version 1 of dGoods, the actual beta, is here. So that means you can go out, you can make a non-fungible token, you can make a semi-fungible token, and you can start using a lot of the attributes that dGoods has in their standard for digital goods on EOS. But there was a really cool feature that I wanted to highlight, which is called DEX in a token. Did you read about that at all?
I did. It's basically like the DEX information's like programmed into the token.
So one of the biggest problems that, and I tweeted a little bit about this, but one of the biggest problems that plagues DEXs, decentralized exchanges today, is this lack of liquidity, right? There's not a lot of buyers, not a lot of sellers for different tokens that exist today. And that's sort of exacerbated by the fact, it's made worse by the fact that there are a ton of decentralized exchanges, because generally the overhead to launch what is effectively a smart contract is much, much lower than running a centralized exchange where you actually have to manage people's funds. So there are a ton of DEXs, and the already limited liquidity gets split up across all those DEXs. But what the dGoods DEX in a token does is effectively allows you to sell a digital good, whether that's an NFT or an SFT or maybe even a normal token on EOS in the future. It allows you to put it for sale as the token itself and have it automatically listed in every single marketplace that supports the dGoods standard. So imagine if you were selling a TV in your house, just to give you a real world example. If I could put the TV up for sale, if I could on the screen of the TV say, oh, I want to sell the TV for $100, and it would automatically put it on every website that had a marketplace. It would put it on eBay, it would put it on Local 5 or whatever it is, all the different websites where you sell things, it would automatically place it. And that's essentially what's happening here. You can imagine if I just got a rare Blanco or a rare sword in the Blancos games, and I have this item and I want to sell it, instead of having to then choose, okay, do I want to list it on this decentralized exchange or this marketplace or the Scatter marketplace or the dGoods marketplace, you can list it on all of them just by, within the token itself, putting it up for sale. So that's what's so powerful here, is that not only can a user list a token or list an item once and have it appear on every decentralized exchange as kind of this joint shared liquidity pool, but at the same time, it also dramatically lowers the barrier to entry for anybody to set up their own marketplace, because no longer do you have to go out and convince people to list only on your marketplace. You can just pull in all of these orders from all the tokens that are for sale themselves. So this is going to be huge, and I think has a lot of potential repercussions to sort of radiate out into the blockchain space. And like I said, maybe tokens themselves will actually have this functionality in the future as well.
So that was obviously my favorite part also, because it's like a game changer for liquidity, as you explained.
Absolutely.
But the multiple tokens and sub-tokens in one contract is also notable as well. So basically what these NFTs allow is, let's say you have like the parent NFT that is like a sword. But within that sword, it could have maybe a different type of blade or a different type of handle, or maybe it's a different color. And all of those different attributes could actually be their own sub-tokens within a token contract. So that is super, super cool. I can't wait to see, I guess, what the developers come out with as far as that. They also have the semi-fungible tokens integrated in that, which I guess isn't too exciting to a lot of people, but it really is. It's basically a good example would be a serialized item. So all items are exactly the same, except they might have one unique attribute, which is the serial number. So that is allowed within the dGoods contract now for the semi-fungible tokens. The one I wasn't as familiar with, though, is this multiple layers of token categorization.
Yeah, so the way I understand it is that you can essentially make a token category for anything. So if I had a token category for sword, it's just a way of making it easier for the marketplace owners and even for users just to sort of filter and categorize different asset types. So I could say, this is, this sword that I just got in this game is number one, a game item. I know that it's a gaming item, it's in a game, it's not a movie ticket or a song or something like that. it's a game item, then I can say, oh, it's a weapon, oh, it's also a sword, and you can kind of categorize it in that way. But what I thought was really cool as well is the actual metadata asset types have been added in 1.0 too. So that means, with all of these marketplaces, the 2D or 3D metadata, what the sword looks like in the game, the attributes of the sword, can actually be embedded in the token themselves as a JSON file as well. So you can imagine if I send, this rare sword I just got to you, Zach, the 3D model of that sword, if it's embedded in the token, will then show up in your wallet. And instead of just seeing, oh, I got this random token from Rob.VR, oh, cool, I got this sword, I can see the sword, I can move the 3D model around, all of that is made possible by the metadata. So that, to me, is super, super exciting.
You know why that has me excited, Rob? I think we should drop some teasers here. I think we should drop some teasers. So, as part of our growth at Everything EOS, we are out, we have the merch store. We've had the same merch for the last 2 months. It's not that we're not working on it. We have new designs ready, but we're waiting. We were actually waiting for the dGoods standard to come out for this very reason. We don't have a date yet. I'd say in the next couple months is a good estimate, but in the future, because of this metadata on the asset types, when you buy merch from the Everything EOS merch store, you are going to get a receipt NFT. If you provide your EOS account, we will send you an NFT for the item that you bought. And that NFT embedded in it will have whatever metadata is needed to allow you to have that in some of the most popular EOS games. So right now, we don't have the agreements in place, so I don't want to say that this is happening for sure, but think about it like Blankos or High Fidelity. If you could have the item that you bought in the physical world, you could have that item in the game. Maybe EOS Knights. If you are a game developer and you want to integrate the Everything EOS NFTs, please reach out to us because we are actively pursuing these partnerships and we need to know the data standard type for the items within your game so that we can include it in the metadata for our Everything EOS merch NFTs.
Absolutely. And just to make it very clear what Zach just said, these are going to be limited edition pieces of merch where we might only make 50 or 100 of these new Everything EOS shirts. And then alongside that, we're going to mint 50 or 100 of these NFT tokens that represent those shirts as well. So if I buy one of these cool new Everything EOS shirts in real life, I will not only get the shirt, but then I'll also get a free NFT token that represents that shirt in the digital world. So your Blankos can wear it. You can put it in any other games. We're super excited about the possibilities here. So if you like this idea, leave a comment. Let us know what those first merch designs should be. We have a lot of stuff that we're throwing around right now, determining which one we're going to release first. But like Zach said, super, super excited about this.
And if you don't want to use the item in games, we'll probably have future contests where you could just burn your tokens. Maybe you don't want to use your NFT in Blankos or in High Fidelity or in EOS Knights or whatever other games reach out to us, ITM Games, whoever wants to come and get our items in their games. If you don't want to play those games, that's fine. We'll probably have frequent contests where you could actually enter the contest by burning your NFT. There's so many different things we could do. So we kind of took some flack with the Everything EOS developer courses, how you had to link your scatter to get the free promo code. We're just trying to innovate here. We don't just talk about this stuff. We do this stuff. We are breaking ground here with what we are trying to do. We are trying to lead the way here at Everything EOS, and we hope that everyone is here to come follow us. So like Rob said, if you like the idea for the NFTs, let us know in the comments below. But instead of talking about ourselves some more, let's just move on with dGoods. Just to mention who the core developers were behind this dGoods 1.0 standard. It's mainly Mythical Games, and also another project that had some recent updates is pixEOS. And who else is in there? So don't leave them off, Rob, because those are the two I'm familiar with. I know Cypherglass.
Yeah, Mythical Games, pixEOS, Cypherglass, Token Pocket, Scatter, and a ton of other people. So that was sort of the core initial launch team, and then a ton of other partners, Nova Wallet, I think, Math Wallet, a bunch of others that are listed on dgoods.org that have joined after that initial announcement. So it's really just a big group of people that all want this standard for digital goods on EOS. And you can see, a year from now, 2 years from now, how powerful having a standard like this will be when no matter what token is created in whatever new EOS game, it's a part of this standard and can then, as a result, be used in all these different marketplaces and even be used in other games and other applications as well. So it's super exciting, and something that is really necessary. But like you said, Mythical Games doing most of the coding work, and pixEOS has helped a little bit as well. And I think we should dive in on some pixEOS updates, because
that was our transition. The transition got a little bit messed up, but who cares? pixEOS is our next topic of discussion, because there is a lot of releases and a lot going on with pixEOS. So a few days ago, they're listed on their very first exchange since their token sale. So they are now listed on Nudex, and they surprised everyone leading up to that exchange listing. They actually announced that they were going to double their staking rewards on if you're staking pixEOS tokens, you were getting like a daily reward basically, and they're going to. Well, they already have actually. It already kicked in. If you keep your token staked in pixEOS, like you probably have been for the last few months, you should now start noticing that you're claiming double the rewards per day. So that was actually really good game theory, I thought, because you get the exchange listing, you get that everyone is at least considering, should I sell, should I not sell? Well, I think they made the decision easy for a lot of us, because they're like, well, why don't you just keep your token staked and we'll double your rewards? So I'm happy. Definitely. To see that, but that's not even the most exciting news. The most exciting news, I would say, is the launch of 2 of their new games.
And just to clarify real quick, the doubling of rewards will actually last through the end of May. So you still have a ton of time if you want to grab up your own pixEOS on the exchange, or maybe you have some already that for whatever reason you don't have staked. You can go ahead and stake it and claim those double rewards through the end of the month. But like you said, they did actually surprise us with the release of another game in the Game Center. Actually, 2 new games. So the first is a Flash edition, a new version of the pixEOS Paint canvas. It's a totally separate canvas, has a lot of new features, a lot of UX and UI improvements. It's pretty cool and sort of shows you where the direction of the overall pixEOS Paint canvas will go. But then the second thing that they surprised us with was the very first game from that Game Center trailer, which is Block.One 3000. So this is pretty cool. I would almost describe it, I think there's a game that has a similar concept. I don't remember the name. It starts with a 2. It's a series of numbers, but it's almost like Tetris, but with blocks that represent numbers, and you add up 2 4s to make 8, and then you make another block and make that 8 and combine to 16. And it's this constant doubling and combining of numbers to eventually hit this big number and win the game. But that is super fun over on the Game Center. You can check out all of this stuff at the pixEOS Hub, which is hub.pixeos.one. I know they have a bunch of different addresses, but hub.pixeos.one is where you can see everything in the pixEOS ecosystem that is out today.
And before we move on from pixEOS, I just want to give a shout out to Stella. I'm not sure what her title is with pixEOS, but she shared some sweet EOS pixEOS shoes that she's going to be wearing at B1 June. I just want to throw them up on the screen to show these puppies off, because they're super sweet.
Yeah, those are awesome.
So shout out to Stella for all the fun memes and cool things you do for the community with pixEOS and outside of pixEOS. I just wanted to I think she's actually selling these shoes too, so I'll throw a link up for that as well if you want to buy the same shoes that you see on the screen here.
So other big news in the EOS ecosystem is another EOS VC announcement. And before Zack dives into it, I do want to make a quick note of what EOS VC is. It is this $1 billion dapp fund that Block.One has set up to fund dapps that are building using EOSIO technology. That could be the EOS mainnet, it could be their own private implementation, but they're trying to get basically more dapps to build on EOS, which is such a cool goal. And with $1 billion, they can really fund a lot of projects. And it looks like FinLab AG out of Europe, which is one of the funds that make up EOS VC, just announced their most recent funding endeavor. Is that right, Zack?
Yep. So the press release went out earlier this week for a project called Blockchain Helix. It says it's a 7-figure amount, which is weird. FinLab has this habit of saying everything 7 figures, so I think it's that you could like maybe think it's in the high single millions, but realistically, it's probably in the low millions. It's probably like $1 to $5 million. We don't know.
Generally, when somebody says 7-figure, it's like, oh, we made $1 million investment, and it's not 9 million generally, but that's good. I mean, with the amount of money that FinLab has, I think it's a $50 million fund. That could be 50 projects or 40 projects that come out of this one EOS VC fund. So I think it's great.
This is the smart way to do it, because you're getting skin in the game, you're motivating the team, but then the team still holds majority equity in their company, and got a lot of flexibility from there because they didn't just give away the house, so to speak. And like you said, FinLab, by doing these low single-digit $1 million investments, they're able to diversify their investments much further by not going all in and giving them like a $30 million investment like Everipedia got from Galaxy Digital, for example.
And this is just one of many recent announcements from FinLab. So we talked about Moodlining that has 700,000 users that could potentially be exposed to the EOS ecosystem. We talked about Next Big Thing, which is an Internet of Things IoT incubator, looking at a bunch of different companies. So sort of one big chunk of money that will then fund a lot of smaller projects and companies within it. And then this is the most recent. So a lot of people were excited. This is actually an identity solution.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to find really good information about this because a lot of the websites and press releases I come across are actually in German, and my Google Translate kind of tries to figure out what it's saying, but it's not a perfect system. But they are an ID verification platform. They have a KYC onboarding process. They have a way to store data privately on your local device, and it's basically you could decrypt it through blockchain to, I guess, own your identity. So that identity is something that we've talked about so many times here, and it's one of the things people are predicting that Block.One potentially has solved for Block.One June, and a lot of people I saw on Twitter think maybe this is the solution. I don't think this is necessarily the identity solution we're going to see for B1 June, but I don't know because we have heard rumors at the event in San Francisco that there will be a KYC component to Block.One's social media platform. And just because this announcement came out this week, it doesn't mean that the investment didn't happen months ago. So we don't know when that investment happened, but since it's also FinLab, I have a feeling that maybe the Moonlighting project could potentially use this digital identity platform. So I think like the individual EOS VCs themselves are trying to kind of set their own incubated like portfolio companies. They're trying to set them all up to have some synergy to work together. But I also have no doubt that there's some direction from above as far as like Block.One having a say in the EOS VC, and they might be talking to all of the individual funds and saying, we need this, and we need this. Find the best companies in the world that are willing to do it and willing to do it on EOSIO. So that's another reason why I don't think this is the solution. It is a solution. It might have some components of it that might be pulled from it. But if Block.One was smart and if EOS VC was smart, they would be working with multiple different types of KYC solutions, digital identity solutions. That way they could make the absolute best one. And that way they could also give users choices into which one they want to use.
I happen to agree. I mean, I think if this was going to be some big B1, hey, this is the identity solution we're using, I feel like they would have saved this for the B1 June event to have yet another piece of news on top of everything. But at the same time, it definitely is possible, in the same way that EOS Name Service is using EOS DNS for our DNS solution instead of building our own, and that allows us to focus on other features and other products that we want to roll out. B1 could be doing the same with identity, where maybe they are building this decentralized app, whether it's a social network or something else entirely that needs an identity component, and maybe they went to these guys and said, hey, why don't you be our identity solution so that we can save time and then focus on other features and other stuff in their roadmap. But I guess only time will tell, and it is so exciting that we are only a couple weeks away from figuring out what it is that Block.One is going to reveal. Is it going to be a product? Is it just their roadmap? Dan has said we will get a 5+ year roadmap from Block.One. We don't know how detailed it'll be or what it will include, but maybe, just maybe, it will have this identity solution as a part of it. So we'll see.
We talked about this when I first got back from San Fran and mentioned that Meos might have a KYC component to it. But if it has that and it also comes with a revenue share, I think it would be well worth it. But have your feelings changed on that at all? Like, do you think KYC will be a problem for mass adoption, I guess?
No, I think, your example of the scooter in San Francisco where you were like, oh, I never use KYC, and then the first thing the scooter app asked for was a photo of your driver's license so that then you can get on the scooter. I think for the average user, KYC is just kind of a part of your everyday life. It definitely seems like Block.One, throughout all of their communication, through Dan or Brendan or the official handles, they really are looking at identity as a piece to solve a lot of this. And Dan has gone on to say in Telegram, not a direct quote, but verbatim, basically something along the lines of the government wants us to do a KYC version. There are a lot of things they wanted to do that, based on current regulation or maybe the advice of their legal team, they can't do. So if I had to guess, I would agree that Block.One solution likely will include a KYC component to interface with whatever identity solution they're trying to use. But again, who knows? Maybe it'll just be something that they open source and let somebody else launch without KYC. So only time will tell.
So the holy grail of blockchain is having like this sovereign identity, so that that like you can't have multiple accounts. Like you could have multiple accounts, but only one of them will have your identity attached to it, or however that'll work. But if we wanted to do a unique identity to prove that it's just one person in the world, like we've talked biometrics and all of that, but what I think will happen is for the genesis of whatever this system is in place, if the Genesis users do require like a state ID, that's kind of how you get your Genesis members to the club. But over time, as it grows, are you familiar with Gifty? It's kind of like a newer project. I don't think there's a lot of information about it. It's an EOS project. But they have something called a web of trust. And it basically means that for a new member to join the project or the network, let's say, that they have to be invited by someone who's already a member. So if I'm a member of this particular network and Rob isn't, and if I want to invite Rob into the network, I basically am risking some sort of stake to invite Rob into the network. And if over time Rob is proven to be a bot or proven to be under a different account within that network, then not only does Rob get kicked out, but I'm punished also because I'm the one who invited him in. So I could see this as like almost like a Trojan horse into creating that Genesis group of the network. And then over time, maybe the KYC component's not a requirement, but the requirement could change to some sort of social proof that you're known by real people who are already in the network and they say you're a real person. So they're basically risking stake or maybe potential future UBI rewards or future revenue share rewards. So they're basically risking their own financial position to allow you into the network. So it's a nice way to build trust.
My biggest hope with all of this, honestly, is just that it doesn't turn into some kind of a system like they have in China now with the social credit system. Obviously, totally different. It's centralized. It's a government-run thing. This will likely be decentralized and not be run by the government at all. But I'm hoping that when we talk about identity solution, there are all these things that pop into my mind about these like horrific 1984-esque, dystopian futures. And I really hope that whatever this is sets the groundwork to make a future that, even if there is a KYC component, that it's fully decentralized. You don't have one entity sort of deciding who can and can't be a part of the network based on a social credit score or something like that. So that's my hope with all this, is that it does good for the human race and doesn't put humans under even more totalitarian control with some kind of crazy KYC.
And a big part of that, though, with the KYC is where is your data actually being stored? Is it encrypted?
Absolutely.
It should be like a black box where basically publicly all anyone can see is whether or not you've been KYC'd, or if you give permission to like one piece of information, like your age. I can give you my age, and because it comes out of this black box, you trust that I'm telling you the truth because you trust the system, you trust the code. So we'll see, man. But I guess we should move along to the next subject, which is back to the Rex. So Rex passed a week or two ago. We talked about it on a previous episode. But like the first day it launched, it was getting like flooded like crazy because everyone was upset about the returns on it, the interest rates on it. And initially it was low because there wasn't enough data on it. And even still, like realistically, there's not a lot of data on it. But right now we're at roughly a 1% APR, which basically means that if you're staked to the Rex and you're voting for 21 or more block producers, that you will receive a 1% return on your EOS, which is exactly the same inflation rate happening to the entire network that goes to the block producers. So we were talking about this before we started recording, and you said it's almost like it's not quite deflationary. It just negates the network inflation.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that is honestly a huge benefit for people, especially people who are long-term holders. You're not using the resources in your account anyway. Instead of just letting them sit there and sort of inflate away by 1% a year, obviously it takes a long time for that to really impact your wealth overall, but that 1% can add up. So if you can negate that by getting 1% every year from Rex, you can actually completely offset inflation and just keep your same relative percentage of the network as time goes on. So that I think is a cool feature. But I also think it's incredibly ironic that a lot of the people who were coming out saying, Rex isn't giving me enough money, I'm not making enough money off of Rex, these were the same people saying that EOS resources were too expensive just a few months ago. So now that the resource problem has been solved, EOS resources are dirt cheap. You can come in with one EOS, I think you can buy something like it was either $2,500 or $25,000 worth of EOS resources to power your dapp or whatever you need. It's incredibly cheap, and now people are saying that's a bad thing. No, that's an incredibly good thing, that the barrier to entry for developers is so low. With just a couple dollars now, you can power an entire dapp. So that I think is amazing. It shows the power of Rex. And in the future, as demand for CPU goes up, we may see that 1% go up as well, especially if the EOSIO name fees and the RAM fees are added into that Rex pool too. So to the people out there, incredibly hypocritical, but come on, EOS is so cheap now, this is so good for development and will be good for the chain overall.
My question for anyone who wants to complain that 1% isn't good enough, let me ask you, what were you getting before the Rex? You were getting nada. And the other thing is, how do we make that percentage go up? Well, we help with user adoption, mass adoption. We bring more dapps. And like, what are you doing is my question. I could tell you what I've been doing. Rob and I have been doing this podcast every single week, at least one every week for the last 65 plus weeks. We've been doing this every single week. We have not missed a beat. We have not missed a single show. We're onboarding new developers. We have 250 new developers learning EOSIO. If even one of those develops a killer dapp that onboards tens of thousands of users, and they don't want to actually buy and own the tokens for CPU, they're going to be using Rex. So it happens to get to where we want to go. It takes all of us. Everyone needs to put in more than they're taking out, and that's how we're going to grow this pie. The other thing is with the 1% is if you believe that the EOS token value is going to go up, you're actually going to get much more than a 1% gain. So if you're thinking like traditional banking with your savings account, if you're getting a 1% interest on $100, you're going to end the year with $101. But if you had 100 EOS tokens and you had a 1% gain, you have 101 EOS tokens. But if the value of those 101 tokens went up, you're going to get a significantly higher amount than just that 1% that you see on like the rate indicator on like blocks right now.
Absolutely. Woo! And one thing I wanted to highlight also about Rex is that there's more than 50 million EOS that has come in, voted for block producers, and been added to this pool. So ultimately, the total number of people on the network has come up, the total number of people voting, which is ultimately a great thing. The total supply goes down in terms of liquid supply that's unstaked. You know, more is staked in Rex and staked for a longer period of time. But at the same time, it also encourages that non-biased voter participation. So super excited about that. The more people staking and voting on EOS, the better for everyone. So honestly, from my perspective, I think Rex has been a relatively big success. 50 million EOS coming into it, 1% to offset inflation if you want to use that, and hopefully higher percentages in the future as those fees and more people start using it.
So now that Rex has been initiated, thanks to the EOS user agreement, makes it really easy to get things done now. The next big thing up for debate is what to do with the 4% inflation. And the debate last week was what to do with EOSIO.saving. So if you missed the news, which I don't think you did by the time you see this, but we burned 34 million tokens from the EOSIO saving account. And all of those tokens were the 4% accumulation of inflation since the June mainnet launch. But as of right now, so all of those tokens are burned, but over the last couple of days, it's already back up to 2 million EOS. So the 4% inflation is still being funneled into the EOSIO.saving. And there's a lot of debate right now. There's a referendum actually that says to reduce it to 1%. And the referendum, as of right now, has 25 million EOS voting yes and 0% voting no.
Well, just to clarify, first of all, as well, that 2 million EOS that's in EOSIO.saving now did not just accumulate over a couple days. It's just that throughout this whole voting process, which took several weeks, that was when the EOSIO saving snapshot was taken, and that number of EOS to be burned was locked in. So it continued to accumulate over a couple weeks, and that's why we have such a big chunk still left in there now. It's just 4% over a year, so much, much more than just a couple days, just to be 100% clear.
Really glad you just corrected me on that, because whenever I looked looked up this number when putting together the show notes. I was like, wow, that's a lot of EOS. And I didn't take the time to do the math. So basically, whenever it was first proposed a couple of months ago, they chose a specific block. And it's still been accumulating interest beyond that, is what you're saying.
Exactly. So if you look at the total, 4%, roughly 40 million EOS a year, it's less than a million EOS a week that are accumulating. So it's been a couple weeks for that 2 million EOS to actually accumulate. But now, like you said, the conversation is shifting to inflation. So even though those 34 or 35 million EOS tokens were burned, that EOS is still accumulating. So in order to stop it from accumulating so that we don't have to burn every couple months, which might not be the worst thing in the world, but would be much easier to get rid of it, there's a proposal up now on the referendum system that has 100% approval, which is pretty wild, to reduce inflation from 5% down to just the 1% block producer pay inflation and totally get rid of the EOSIO saving accumulation. And Cypherglass actually just recently voted on this referendum and signaled our intent that yes, we want to lower inflation right now, when we will vote on the official block producer multi-sig proposal whenever it does go live.
So I'm in favor of turning it down. I guess if I had a choice, I would maybe turn it off to like 1.5% or something really, really like conservative. But I'm not going to go against the court of public opinion, I guess, either. And if 100% of the EOS community who has voted on this referendum are saying lower it to 1%, I can get on board with that. I still think that we need to think about how we're going to fund community development outside of the block producers. So like, I know we gave up on the WPS a long time ago, but EOS New York had some ideas they put out a few weeks ago that we talked about. And I think that needs to be where we circle this conversation around is who is supposed to fund like core development and infrastructure, like new history node development. What was the other ones? An automated standby block producer testing system so that we could actually test the non-active nodes to make sure they're even running a server. Because you could actually, if you're like the number 50 block producer, let's say, all you need to do is submit a reg produce transaction, which basically says that this account is now a block producer. And you could do that without running a single web server. And as long as you got the votes, which a lot of these lower ranked BPs, some of them are probably getting like kickback votes from bigger BPs or from exchanges. We want to have a way that automates testing. So put them into the top 21 occasionally and test them, or some other way. Who's going to fund development like that without like a WPS or a commons fund of some sort?
I was initially in the same boat when it comes to the actual number of inflation, where initially I thought, hey, let's just reduce it to 1.5% or 2% and let that accumulate just in case. But as I thought more about it and really thought about the role of block producers on the network and our responsibility, I sort of came to the conclusion, and the Cypherglass team as well, that it's a bit irresponsible to continue to let that inflation accumulate if we don't have a use for it. So like you're saying, I think the EOS New York proposal is great because that's a source of funding for community development projects that doesn't come from inflation. We don't have to have the whole network agree that, hey, you can take those funds that we've all sort of been inflated away and have contributed to in some way. You don't have to take those and use them for your project. You can use these funds that don't come from inflation, that come from another source, to fund those projects as well. So that, I think, is the way to move forward. However, based on the rapid innovation that's happening on EOS right now, the proposals that are getting approved, the things that are being just proposed and discussed, I don't think it's out of the question that this could be turned on again in the future if there is a really good way to do worker proposals that doesn't have whale manipulation and potential BP manipulation. If there is a way to do it, I'm confident the community will vote again to turn that inflation back on. But I think right now it's just irresponsible to continue to let it accumulate. So I think we got to bring it back down to 1% and then explore other solutions like the one from EOS New York that are totally voluntary and opt-in and don't use inflation for the funding source.
I can get behind that. So I think the holy grail is the topic we talked about earlier, a unique identity solution. If we have that, it's much more likely that we'll be able to have a WPS type system in place. Yeah. And then Brendan Bloomer's also said it's not a base layer solution. So maybe it's like some sort of like dapp level solution to do a WPS, or maybe it's something completely different. I don't think that we should continue to rely fully on block producers to do everything. I think the network can produce funding for other non-block producing entities to contribute to the main net. But at this point, I don't have the solution. I want to hear everyone else's opinions. So we have to decide, one, let us know in the comments, what should we do with the inflation rate as it stands? Should we lower it to 1%, which is what 100% of the community wants so far? And then after we do that, what do we do with the 2 million plus EOS in the saving account that has accumulated since the date of the snapshot from that token burn that we just had? And then also, what do we do with the accumulated funds in the EOSIO RAM fees account and also the daily name auction account? Because those also have 2 million EOS in the one, and I don't have notes for the other, but it's probably also pretty high. So we have a couple million EOS just sitting in these accounts. We've already burned 34 million EOS. Do we burn the rest, or what do we do with them? So I guess that's my question to you guys in the comments.
Absolutely. And speaking of community development, we've been talking about that a lot. There's some pretty big news coming out of Virginia Tech, which of course has that $3 million grant from Block.One to set up this educational curriculum. But now they're really kind of building this blockchain developer community at Virginia Tech. And one of the ways they're doing it is through this blockchain competition. And has this been going on for the entire semester? Is that right?
Yeah, so way back in January, Block.One kicked off the blockchain initiative at Virginia Tech with a blockchain bootcamp program. So for one weekend in January, they invited all of the students who wanted to attend at Virginia Tech, and 300 of them showed up for like an 8-hour workshop learning about not only blockchain, but EOSIO specifically. So that kind of kicked off this initiative. And then after that initiative, they announced a semester-long contest, which was very similar to how the hackathons were done last year, except instead of it just occurring over one weekend, it happened over the entire semester. So there are different teams of undergrad students and graduate students who are building blockchain projects to fulfill the challenge of building a cutting-edge blockchain application that provides value to the broader Virginia Tech community of students, faculty, staff, alumni, and friends. And they were all competing for a $25,000 prize. And all of this stuff was initiated by a $3 million grant that Block.One donated to Virginia Tech last May. That was May 2018. So that's why all of this stuff's happening at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech it's a university that's known for its engineering programs. It's in the same city as it's Blacksburg, Virginia. It's the same city as Block.One. It's the same university that Dan Larimer is an alumni from. And as a matter of fact, he was just awarded an Outstanding Alumnus Award by the computer science program at Virginia Tech. But the reason we're talking about all this Virginia Tech stuff is literally as we are recording this on Thursday, the finals are going on, the pitch competition for this $25,000 prize pool that everyone's competing for. And we had a team from the university on one of our shows a long time ago, JW and the Blockchain Boys. So by the time this airs, the winners will already be decided. But just know we are rooting on the JW and the Blockchain Boys. That's who we're cheering for. And it was also cool because the article that was published by Virginia Tech, and we'll have the link in the description, it described what was going on, basically everything I just explained to you guys, but I'm going to read a quote about their favorite part of this competition. And they said, being invited to do a live podcast with everything EOS at the beginning of the challenge was a standout moment for JW and the Blockchain Boys. Quote, when our team walked into the Block.One office 2 days later, every person commented on the podcast, giving us encouragement and feedback. Yeah, buddy. That means they're listening. Cool. They're watching.
I don't know what's cooler, that we were an instrumental part of the JW and the Blockchain Boys making it to the finals and really getting them excited for the competition, excited for EOS, or the fact that they say everybody at Block.One had watched the podcast and was kind of cheering them on. So I don't know which one is cooler, but it's just so cool to see more and more people building on EOS. That's what we're all about here at Everything EOS.
And I guess one last thing is that the Block.One offered mentorship all throughout this program. But I want to know who the results are. By the time this airs, I'll do the graphic editing. There will be a graphic on screen, hopefully saying congratulations to JW and the Blockchain Boys. And not just for them, but we want to put an open invite out right now as we close out the show. We want to let every team know who is involved in this Virginia Tech blockchain semester-long challenge. Reach out to us on Twitter. It's at Everything EOS with an IO at the end. So Everything EOS IO is our handle. We have our direct messages open, even if we're not following each other. Reach out. We want to have you on the show. We want a recap of everything you guys did throughout this semester, what you learned about EOSIO, and what your next steps are if you have any.
Absolutely. I think that is a great place to end it. Lots of good stuff happening, obviously, still in the month of May, even though B1 June is still a few weeks away. There is so much good news coming from the community, coming from EOS VC, coming from Virginia Tech with JW and the Blockchain Boys. So much, as usual, happening on EOS. Should we let the people know, Zach? Should we give a little wrap up here?
How do we do it? We always mess this up. People say they like watching us do it.
Let the people know who you are.
All right. Once again, I'm Zack Gall.
I'm Rob Finch. And this is Everything EOS. 1, 2, 3, go EOS! We'll hope it's synced up. Anyway, see you guys next week.
Later, guys.